one of the most powerful aspects of Salesforce is the automation tools. And the other day I was talking to a consultant that works with Slalom Consulting, and they utilize Salesforce a lot. And he said they use Salesforce to move information. And I thought that was a really great description of the power of Salesforce is to get information into the right hands at the right time in your organization. Sadly, people don't use the process automation tools enough. And we can ensure a high level of operation of excellence in our organization by setting up some simple process automation tools to make sure that people know when they're supposed to do something and to make sure they've done it. And so there's a couple of automation tools in Salesforce. There's a trailhead. If you go to trailhead.salesforce.com, you can see an overview. If you just search automation, there's this article called Choosing the Right Automation Tool. Just search automation, and it's called Choose the Right Automation Tool. And there's four major process automation tools in Salesforce. One is Process Builder, and this is for people when you want to update records or perform actions on records. You would use Process Builder. Process Builder does not have the ability to have a user interface. And a user interface would mean a ability for someone to fill out data or like a form. And that's when we would want to use Cloud Flow Designer. You can see that there's similar ideas with a flow of information. And it's just that I would choose Process Builder because it's actually a bit simpler to use if I don't need to have user interaction in that user interface. If I do, you can basically do pretty much the same things in Cloud Flow Designer. We call it flows that you can in Process Builder. In addition to that, you can create forms for people to enter data. Again, the problem is that the Flow Designer is a bit complicated to learn. And so if you can use Process Builder, that's great. Even simpler than Process Builder is just flows, or they're just called workflow rules. So workflow rules is even simpler. So I went back into my settings in my Salesforce instance, and I clicked on Setup here, and then I went to Process Automation, and I clicked on Workflow Rules. Workflow Rules allows you to do even similar things to Process Builder, but it's even simpler. So again, if I have to default to just the simplest cases that I'm trying to manage, I would actually use Workflow Rules. And we'll go over this later as well. The last workflow action is we have flows, we have process automation, process builder, we have workflow rules, and the last one is approval processes. And so approval processes allows you to create kind of a step-by-step process to approve information and even go back in steps if someone doesn't approve. So maybe you have a new scholarship, and that's the case that we'll use in another video. And we want to have a student apply for that scholarship, and then we want a series of people in the organization to approve that scholarship. So we'll use approval processes to manage that and make sure that nothing falls through the cracks to make sure that scholarship is approved. So those are the four types of automations in Salesforce. And this article really gives you great kind of scenarios of when to use which ones, when to use approvals, when to use the Flow Designer, when to use Process Builder, and when to use Cloud Flow Designer. It is a bit confusing, the terminology of Cloud Flow Designer versus Flow Designer. And so just know that that they are different. One is in your workflow rules here, and the other is just called flows, which is what Salesforce calls Cloud Flow Designer. And also in the new version that's coming up of Salesforce in 2019, they will be rewriting flows. It'll be basically operating in the same way, but it'll be a much nicer user interface, It won't have Flash, which is a very old technology to build kind of web apps. And so they're retiring that old version of Flows and have rebuilt it, which will be ready in the next release of Salesforce. Basically, in theory, all your flows will migrate seamlessly into the new Flow Designer, and there'll be very little learning curve apparently because it's going to operate pretty much in the same way. So Flows is very powerful, and we'll go into that in more detail as well.